In today's society, people are constantly fighting and standing for what they know and believe is right. People do everything they can to acquire a force of change and progression. Most notably, those who are fighting against prejudice.
They came to demand change.
Black lives have always mattered!
One which has had such significance as of late is the Black Lives Matter movement.
Black Lives Matter! Black Lives Matter!
1700 years ago, a man named Alban stood for what he believed in and sought to protect a Christian priest against unjust persecution, and went on to become Britain's first Christian martyr, patron saint of converts, torture victims, and refugees. How has one British story got so much relevance with today and the movement of BLM? It's a story retold throughout the ages, from the moment of his martyrdom, when historian Bede included biblical symbolism, to the tale of Alban. We don't know what was ever said, we just know there is truth between the tale and the myth.
Here we've got the shrine of Saint Alban. It has a red and gold canopy on the top. Red for the blood of a martyr, gold for the crown that he would have received in heaven.
Alban is an incredibly significant person in the history of Britain and the history of Christianity in Britain. He's the first British saint. He lived around about the year 300, and his significance is often underestimated. He does something quite remarkable. He takes in a wandering Christian priest. Now that sounds easy to us, but in fact in those days, Christianity isn't permitted as a legal religion of the empire. And so Alban's doing something risky by sheltering a fugitive, a subversive fugitive, in his own home.
But why would a Roman citizen or soldier throw away his life for another? How did Alban become immortalized in sainthood as Britain's first rebel with a cause?
Tell me more of this one true God you preach of, Amphibolus.
My God is not like Roman gods, Alban. The Lord created everything around us. He created you and I. The Roman gods are cruel and harsh and expect offerings and sacrifices to appease them. Some people in their power help life. My God is compassionate, and he loves you, Alban. I preach this to all the people. It was the Lord who brought me to you and put me in your care.
Risking certain death if caught, Alban offered shelter to the priest in his own home. But it wouldn't take long until Roman authorities discovered this act of treason.
He allows the priest to escape through a very simple but ingenious plan. They exchange cloaks with each other. That means the priest can get away and walk through the town wearing the cloak of an everyday Roman citizen. But Alban, when the authorities come for him, Alban's wearing the cloak of the priest when he's hauled up before the magistrate.
Roman soldiers were on high alert during the rule of Diocletian, who had risen a new law against Christian faith, thus beginning the great persecution of Christianity. Today we see those being ridiculed, persecuted, and imprisoned for their beliefs and choices. It was no different 1700 years ago.
You are aware of why you've been brought before me, aren't you? Preaching your lies of a false God to the people.
Alban was taken before a magistrate whose job it was to decide exactly what crimes against Roman law he'd committed.
You're one of our own. Centurio. In the year 303, the Emperor Diocletian issued an edict, which was the last major persecution of Christianity in the Roman Empire.
Wait a minute, you sheltered the priest, didn't you?
And the edict was basically stripping Christians of their rights. You'll endure scourging until you renounce your false God and accept ours.
Christians finding themselves in this position were seldom spared.
Nothing to say?
My name is Alban, and I worship and adore the one true living God.
Well, I wonder if you'll say that when we remove your head from your shoulders. Take him away. If St Alban was indeed martyred in 304 AD, then it would tie in perfectly. One thing we do know about the Romans is punishment was swift and very, very public as well. You have a whole range of punishments and they all say the same thing: behave. If somebody is scourged, it's not just like a gentle sort of tapping on the back. This is something that's designed to literally remove the skin.
My name is Alban, and I worship the one true living God.
The execution of St Alban is an important part of the story. There was an early church father who once wrote, "The blood of the martyrs is the seed of the church." And so with Alban's execution, that seed gets planted here on a British hillside.
The persecution of St Alban is one to be remembered. What he stood for and accepting his fate to protect another has serious importance.
My name is Alban, and I worship the one true living God.
The story of St Alban is a difficult one to actually say that we're absolutely spot on accurate, because unfortunately the story's been retold and retold. It's a difficult story to pin down, but it's fascinating and it's part of the fabric of the story of Britain.
And that story of Alban's execution has moved on through history.
For those in the United Kingdom who want to see the impact of Alban for themselves, they'll find every 22nd of June a parade in his name conducted in St Albans, Hertfordshire, UK.
Here in the North Transept, we've got a painting called A Last Supper. In the summer of 2020, when Black Lives Matter became an important issue for all of us, the cathedral had to think about its response, and what it decided to do was to hang a print of Lorna May Wadsworth's painting. And it was an important way of saying that when we think of the story of Christ and the teachings of the Bible, they're stories that apply to all of us. They're stories that are envisaged by each community, each race, each generation in their own way.
This first martyr of Britain, this proto-martyr, for that's what it means, his story has gone on to be spread throughout the globe. There are churches dedicated to St Alban in Tokyo, in Copenhagen, in Washington, D.C. There are parishes dedicated to St Alban in Vermont. There are towns in South Africa that bear his name. All of these attest to the importance of the story of Britain's proto-martyr.